Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. Actually, the Ministry of the Environment was asked to give a presentation here, and they approached us in order to give a presentation and a lecture here at the trade show in Hanover. I'm also an engineer myself, so now I'm stepping in for the Ministry of the Environment. And in order to, I was also looking forward to come here and to also take a look at what's going on in terms of green production, in terms of metalworking, machining, and climate-neutral industry. I wanted to learn about the new developments. Now, first, I would like to give you a brief overview of the efficiency agencies so that you know where I'm coming from. For more than 20 years, the Efficiency Agency North Rhine-Westphalia has been commissioned by the Ministry of Environment to support SMEs in terms of green production, sustainability, and resource efficiency. In North Rhine-Westphalia, we have 10,000 industrial companies, and beyond that, we have 18,000 handicraft-focused companies, and they are using primary and secondary resources. They can decide what they want to use. They can decide whether they can repair the products or whether they want to use renewable energies. Of course, not all the 10,000 companies have the responsibility to design their own products. A few larger companies take the decisions on the design of products. However, it needs to be clarified with those large players how to live innovations, how to promote innovations along the entire added value chain in order to promote innovations, which is necessary for energy efficiency. We are organizing trainings and lectures. We have about 200, 300 companies joining us there. And then we also focus on implementation and execution, because at our agency, it is not just enough to show what's possible as potential, but we also want to show them how to do things. So funding and financing is often of the essence, because in times of increasing interest rates, the risk assessment is also very important, also with regard to the EU taxonomy. You have to have the right business plan, and this needs to be included for every company. So what are we doing as Energy Efficiency Agency? The initiatives and projects of the federal government in terms of energy efficiency are promoted by us. We reach about 1,000 people per year. Those are 500 to 700 companies we are training each and every year, and we have about 250 projects with which we are able to reduce 30,000 tons of material per year and 45,000 tons of CO2 emissions. And this is possible because we are actually seeing a stronger focus on energy efficiency and resource conservation, and this results in investments of 180 million euros per year. And this is a very strong signal, and that is why we also need a lot of support of what's going on locally. We want to change things in Germany. We don't only want to consume here, but we also want to produce the products here. Most of the time, the products come from abroad, and we don't want to just give them back in order to have the recycling take place there. And over here you can see the development of the past few years. And this is important because many companies, which are also represented here, are still dealing with the topic of green production. They only focus on their production, and they want their production to become environmentally friendly and climate neutral. However, it's about much more. We need to have environmentally friendly product design and eco-design. And this is what we have started quite early. We started talking to procurement. So we wanted to get the creators and the environmental specialists on board. So the procurement department also needs to know that it's not just enough to buy cheaper products, because they often have a higher CO2 footprint. And it's also important to talk to distributors and to the trade system, because we also need sustainable product design. This needs to be further developed also alongside the use of the product. For more than 5 years, we have the Roundtable Circular Economy in North Rhine-Westphalia. And different institutions and organizations are participating. We have the INSEN Institute, the Competence Network Environmental Economy, the Fraunhofer Institute, the Technology Center, the CSCP, Metabolon, the Wuppertal Institute. Later we will also hear or get an input from the Wuppertal Institute. And we also have the University of Applied Sciences, the society and companies represented here. And we have a large exchange of information. And people also develop strategies in order to see how North Rhine-Westphalia, where 25% of the economic output comes from, how we can involve suppliers and consumers in order to achieve the circular economy. On the right-hand side, you can see a picture of the stakeholders, and just recently we celebrated the 5th anniversary of this network, of this roundtable. And what's special is that the Minister of the Economics and the Minister of the Environment both celebrated this anniversary. This is a cooperation between those two ministries. In the previous presentation, it became also clear that it's important to not just focus on the circular economy, and our Minister of the Environment calls it the waste-focused circular economy, but it's also important to think about the post-consumption. So during the design phase, we already have to think about what's going to happen with the products after their end of life. And this is what the Institute of Wuppertal does. And this also needs to be communicated to the companies and to the managers. They shouldn't only be thinking about what's going to happen with their product after consumption. They already have to design the product in such a way so that it can be reused or refurbished or remanufactured. There should be a reuse or recycling of the product. The product shouldn't just be waste. This is an important approach, and this is what we tell the companies. We tell them that there are 3 different strategies: narrow, less material, and less energy. Or second approach is slow. You use the products for a longer period of time, make them usable for a longer period of time, or make modular products. And then we also have the third strategy, which is close, where you reuse and recycle materials. So the designer and the marketing department can already work on that. So it's not just the technical experts and engineers and technicians in the shop floor having to deal with that. It's up to all of us. Also the designers and the people marketing the products have to think about the circular economy. We have to enable ourselves to remanufacture or refurbish the products. We've already mentioned that the new Green Deal strategy of the EU is so important. 50% of CO2 emissions can only be achieved, this is something we should note here, if the circular economy is implemented, because we have different value streams, we have different usage concepts. We cannot achieve climate neutrality through renewable energies or energy efficiency alone. 50% is the energy transition and 50% is the resource transition. And you already mentioned it. The resource transition can only be achieved in order to, by thinking in circuits, and that is why you also renamed your association. And this will result in different business models. So the business models come from the so-called R strategy. We always say it's 10 strategies, actually it's 11 strategies. You can take a look at them later, but you also see this 3 overarching strategies: narrow, slow, and close. So very important is narrow, with rethinking and reduce. We should have a low input of materials here. Then slow is repairing, refurbishing. But I think the most decisive part is narrow here. And the last strategy would be close. So our focus is on the R1 to R6 strategies, because we have the widest fields of applications with the companies here in order to achieve improvements. On the left-hand side, you can see the linear economic system. So we start with the resource extraction. The materials are of low value. You extract the material, you process the material, you put energy into the materials, you put technology into the materials, and you put your brain into the materials. So the materials become much more valuable until they are being sold to the consumers. So this is the chip. This is the highest price level. And then we use the materials. And as soon as we don't want to use them any longer, they don't have any value. And then they will be waste. So they will be part of the waste regime. So after the usage phase, you can see the loss of value. So we go down to zero here. And the BDE has great examples showing that there can actually be minus values here, that you have to pay something for disposing of waste. And this, of course, leads to the increase of the GDP, but from an economical and environmental point of view, this doesn't make sense. It makes much more sense to have a circular economy. So during the use of product through repairs and modular design, you can keep the products in the loop. So through reusing and refurbishing, you can make sure to keep the product in the circular economy. And this is our task, and this is also the task of other institutions in other states, Baden-Württemberg, Lower Saxony, and so on and so forth. With the support of the Ministry of the Environment, we need to train the companies and raise awareness. This is also done by other institutions. However, we also see that every company, every entrepreneur needs a recipe in order to really deal with this concept, because the general strategies are quite clear. However, the implementation, the execution is rather difficult. We also see that we need to do a lot of consulting, a lot of support, so that people really understand how they can also support their consumers and their clients. And that is why we focus on circular design. Products and business models alike should be designed in a circular way. So we do not only talk to the product designers and manufacturers, but we also talk to the sales reps, to the managers, and to the marketing people, because you also have to come up with circular business models. And the link between those two, the production, the design on the one hand, and then the sales and marketing and management on the other hand, this is something that needs to be supported by the consultant. So if you now take a look at this slide, you will also see that you were also able to see that on the previous slides. We have to work with all the stakeholders in the added value chain, so that the product, the end-of-use product, is not going to the waste regime, but is actually going back to the circle. So you can actually make use of this economic cycle. So we don't only have to talk to the production managers, we also need to talk to the sales reps, we have to raise awareness among them, and we also need to talk to the distributors and retailers. They also have to be willing to sell this used product in the market. So it is also the task of the state government to raise awareness among the consumers as well, through the consumption protection agencies, for instance. So the consumers also have to accept these new products, these used products. Most of the people don't really understand these new products. There are still prejudices and obstacles. We see already some changes in the clothing sector and also in terms of used vehicles, but in all the other segments, people actually want to have new products. I would like to mention one example that we developed together with the company UTK. It is a medical devices manufacturer. This is some kind of pistol. It's a suction and rinsing system, which is used when you have to treat wounds. And you have a pump inside with electrolyte solution. So you rinse the wound and then it is sucked back. And in the past, the entire pistol, including the battery, the motor, the accumulator, everything was thrown away. It was just thrown to the waste bin and it was not recycled, nothing. And UTK Solution from Lüdenscheid, maybe you know Lüdenscheid, came up with a new concept. So after the surgery, this pistol can be opened. And then with this blue part, you can take out the motor and then you can collect the motor. And this is actually the most important part because it also consists of stainless steel and rare earths. You can clean it and it can be reused up to 150 times. And the other parts, the plastic parts, will go to the waste. Of course, with other parts, stainless steel, you could also think about recycling, but it's not really worth it in our society. So maybe you shouldn't just use plastic here, but mainly stainless steel.
Now, these are the approaches that are available for a consultancy project, and the different state governments, but also the sectoral associations offer exactly that. First of all, what you want to do is to reduce your resource consumption by the parameters you see here. Then you want to increase your product benefit. So how can you increase the intrinsic value of a product, like its lifetime, its application, if you think about sustainability. And then finally, once you've done that, maybe you can then reuse and recycle your materials and make it much better. The material and also the chemical recycling is something that should be much upgraded. But there are different strategies and different approaches there. And I think Germany as a society at large, but also Europe, needs to develop a common set of standards to make sure that we're working not only, in one single market, but in a common European integrated market. And even Europe is too small when you come to think of it. Maybe you want to develop strategies for our global economy, because products produced in China are also used in this part of the world. Now, how do you recycle those? How do you dispose of those? If there are plastic materials in the product with heavy metals, but are still circulating on the European market, although they would not be allowed to be circulated, you would need to drill down the supply chain and see to change over the production, say, in China, so that we can recycle it better here in Europe. There are also some initiatives of the universities. The Prosper College is in the Western Ruhr Valley area, and for 4 years they've been working on the circular economy, and they're currently investigating the need for transformation for making the circular economy a reality across the board. The Efficiency Agency of North Rhine-Westphalia has just set off some of that research with its 30 employees, and they're doing this scientifically or academically. Interesting questionnaires, tools they've developed, real labs to bring about results. Now, all of that has been supported by the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action. And that is a project that comes to its end this year. So just have a look in the internet, find out what Prosper College has been doing, or maybe come to the closing event to Bottrop later this year. And here's my last slide. We have also contacted our Dutch colleagues 5 or 6 years ago with the Technical University at Delft. Back in 2016, they have worked on an initiative by the Dutch Ministry of the Environment. They are training companies and designers on all matters related to circular economy and the circular design. 5.5 days, you see that. And both companies and designers undergo that training course. We're doing the same now in North Rhine-Westphalia. applied it to our specificities, to distinguish between the Rhenish and the Westphalian businesses. But also that was done in an effort to raise awareness on the circular economy. We are doing this also in the coming years in partnership with the Ministry of Economic Affairs. We want to reach out to about 20% of our businesses in this state in the next couple of years in order to bring about this change in our federal state. It would be great if that could be done in other parts of Germany as well. But Professor Schaustich, you were right when you said that North Rhine-Westphalia has been a pioneer in this. And ideally, in Baden-Württemberg or Bavaria, other initiatives should be modeling what we've been doing as well, because those initiatives, I believe, are worthwhile to trigger rapid change in the market. So I'd like to thank you for your attention, and later on, when we have our panel discussion, I'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.